This is a Stock Trading Reality Podcast, episode 212.
So I don't have the time to actually sit and watch the trade. So that's why I had to form a strategy that fits for me.
This is the Stock Trading Reality Podcast, where you get to see the realistic side of a trader's journey. Get inspired and stay motivated by everyday normal people who are currently on their journey to trading success. And this is your host. His home's temperature once dropped to 41 degrees. While he was living there, Clay Trader.
I mean, I'm not trying to brag about myself, but I'd like to think that I would have made a good Viking back in the day. I mean, because my house literally was at 41 degrees when we had this. Do you remember the polar vortex? You think back, a few months ago.
Yeah, just another day for me out here, but yes, it was a big deal out by you, for sure.
Yeah, the polar vortex. And that's Ches, by the way. I should have probably introduced him properly, but like I said, I'm so proud of myself about maybe making a good Viking. But that polar vortex came through, and no joke, our furnace went out, and it was like the worst timing of all timing. And by the time the furnace guy could finally come out and make things work, in fact, I know I posted an image on Instagram and Facebook where it was showing 41 degrees in the house, and my wife and kids, they went down the road to my in-laws, which is very convenient. If I can give anybody one life lesson, move 1 mile down the road from I guess not necessarily, I really like my in-laws, so it doesn't bother me, but yeah, it can become very convenient because they at least have a wood burner, so they were able to keep things going, and their furnace still works. So it was kind of like a double whammy there. But yeah, the house got really, really cold. So Ches, my question to you is, are you proud of me that I was able to fight through that and just make it work? And second question, do you think I could be a Viking after this experience?
I'll answer the first one, and then we'll go into the second one. The second one's going to take a little bit more of an explanation, but we can try. So the first one, I think it is a lot of things kind of came together, not only with that storm, but we use examples all the time. Oh, if your car breaks down, are you prepared for it and stuff like that? And obviously you love personal finance and budgeting. And just like you say, and just like practically a perfect example, your furnace goes out during a polar vortex. So, and I mean, the whole thing is, first off, you braved the cold. You're able, you and your family are all good. Everything is kind of fixed and replaced now. So to me, I'm just like, yes, I'm very proud that you survived that, and I knew you could, but I was also very, you had money set aside in case something like this happens, the emergency fund. So stuff like that, I'm telling you, you couldn't have scripted a better example that, I mean, you hear it all the time, but yeah, you absolutely nailed it in that sense.
Well, thank you. I guess I survived, and I survived financial hardship because obviously, if for you listeners out there, if you couldn't tell, I was being a bit sarcastic there, but I'll get a serious. That's actually a good point. That's why personal finance, you got to have a plan, because I am now walking, breathing data point that, yeah, sometimes life has really, really bad timing. And in some situations, there are like no excuses. You would have to go into debt. But because I had money set aside, I didn't have to put anything on a credit card. I didn't have to go into debt for any of that stuff. So we're not going to turn this into a personal finance podcast or episode right now. But yeah,
but what you're really waiting for is to see if I think you would be capable of being a Viking.
That is 100% correct. So how do you answer question number 2?
Well, I'm kind of like, I'm thinking of, various movies and things like that. I'm like, is Clay the guy who's like the second person off a boat that gets hit with an arrow and that's the end of his Viking career? I hope not. So I feel like you'd be smart enough to, pick your line and get up certain beaches and things like that. Yeah, I think you'd be able to make a Viking. I wouldn't say you'd be head Viking, but you could definitely fall in line with the Vikings. I'll give you
So
that.
I wonder how a Viking would view that statement, though. I feel like the guy that was first off the boat that gets the arrow, maybe he's like the most Viking of all Vikings because he was willing to do that.
That's true.
But you never said I would be the Viking of all Vikings. You said I might be able to make it, but I'm kind of like that guy in the back with his tail between his legs that I think is trying to grow a beard but can't quite grow a beard. Like his Viking hat has only like a half a horn on one side. Are you telling me that that's the Viking I would be?
I think a lot of people will be trying to, pick you up and work you, but I mean, you make the team, you made the cut, you got through tryouts, so you got that far. That's pretty good.
I can read between the lines. I'm pretty much the Viking that while the battle is going on, I'm going up to other Vikings saying, "Do you need water, sir? Do you need water? Am I the water boy Viking? Is that what you're? Am I the towel boy? Let me wipe that blood off your face, Viking, because
Let me clean this axe. Yeah, you're all good.
Okay, gotcha. I appreciate the honesty, but we have a great episode here. We have a great discussion, and I would say a very highly anticipated one because of some of the social media posts and a YouTube video I did about this member of the community that's gone through all the training, and he made an awesome trade. And I guess you're going to know what this trade is because of the title of this video. But yeah, a trade where $400 all of a sudden was at $29,000. And we will talk about that. But a lot of people have been wondering, and I don't want to say hating, but yeah, some of it has been kind of negative. Like, wait, chill out. Let's at least hear the guy out before you go and make all these proclamations. So we are going to address all of that. I do want to apologize up front, but I did not know everything about Maquan, which is all the guests, but there is one attribute about, and I don't want to spoil it, but something he did in college that just was like, wait, what? And then we went off on a tangent for a little bit, but I promise it doesn't go for too long. But if you do like, I'll just say college sports, you'll probably enjoy that. But if you don't, if like, oh great, I don't like sports, it's all right. It only lasts for a few minutes, but I am well aware that I probably did derail the conversation a little bit with that. But Maquan, super interesting guy, super motivational. I think at the end he had both Ches and I fired up. And let's just get to it. So here we are. Let's sit down with Maquan. Maquan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, I'm a little nervous because we discovered before we got recording that you used to host a radio show. So all I ask is don't judge me in your professional opinion, because Ches nor I are professionals. Neither of us have any idea what we're doing with this. So, I mean, can you ease my mind? It's funny because before, for context for listeners, I always walk the guests through, hey, none of this is live. So if you're nervous, don't worry about it. There's nothing to be nervous about. And Maquan says, no, I'm not nervous. I used to host a radio show. And then all of a sudden I got nervous. So Maquan, you're not going to judge Ches. Well, I don't know. Ches, I don't know if he cares. I don't want to speak for him. But me, you're not going to judge me, are you?
This is a judge-free zone over here, man. I understand what everybody's trying to do. I will not judge you.
Okay, cool. Do you feel better now too, Ches? Know that when you consider we're talking with a former radio host?
I mean, I feel like he's just going to take over the show, but I do feel better now that I know it's a judge-free zone.
Okay, good. I have to ask, though, out of curiosity, and if you can't say, that's fine. What are you like? Can you give a little bit more context in terms of where this radio show occurred, or I mean, the name of it, or I mean, I don't know how that stuff works. Can you go into the detail anymore?
Yeah, I used to host. I was a program director for UE Radio, which is a local radio station in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where you had a variety of shows. You had country, rock, gospel, hip hop. My show was mainly it was hip hop, and I did a lot of local artists and some familiar faces around the tri-state area, which is New York, Philadelphia, and New Jersey.
Cool. Ches, I say this quite a bit, but at some point, I don't know who we're going to say we haven't talked to. We can officially put on our podcast bucket list. We have talked to a former radio host that Tri-City area you just named, that's got a lot of people in it. I mean, those are some big old cities.
Big cities with big names too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, Maquan. Well, I don't know if you're aware. Let me ask you this. The YouTube video that you commented on, did you read any of the other comments that were part of that video?
I read the first one, and the first one jumped out to me. It was a comment saying, this is not real, it's Photoshop. And I was kind of flabbergasted. It kind of made me chuckle a little bit, how naive some people are. But,
I guess I just bring that up because I'm glad we finally got this worked out, because a lot of people have been demanding that Maquan comes here and explains himself listeners, we'll get there, but we have to start at the beginning. But yes, we will get to I don't know what we want to call it. We'll call it the $400 trade. And,
Maquan is here, y'all. Maquan is here. I'm here now.
So all you people in the comments section that have been freaking out, we'll let Maquan explain himself. We'll let Maquan. I mean, I tried to make note that he sent me an email, and I saw the thought process, but I don't. We're going to try to appease the masses here, Maquan, but let's just take it one step at a time. So, Maquan, where did all this actually start for you? Where did you hear about the markets? And then what eventually kind of happened that led you to wanting to get more hands-on in the markets?
Not going back too far, but early, before 2008, I was working in government in New Jersey. And we had one of our local politicians who was a president of a bank. And I used to ride with him to certain political events. And, he always talked about ownership, owning stocks. And, I always thought, there's no way I can own stocks. And then he kind of, every ride, he would break it down, but I still wouldn't get into it. And then eventually, I decided to dabble in, and I think it was like 2011.
All right. Now you say the word dabble very, very nonchalantly. So what do you define as dabbling? Did you just kind of fund an account and start buying stuff you knew, or go a little bit more detail of that?
That's the true definition. Find an account with no education. Find stocks with no education. Buy stocks with no education, and not knowing that you can find entry points, and then also at certain times where the stock might dip. No need to panic. You got to pack your patience, and I didn't know all that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, obviously, most people don't come into the markets thinking it's more than just pressing a buy button, hanging on, and then you're Warren Buffett, a month or two later. When in reality, there's a lot more that goes into it. So you fund this account. Now, how are you even going about finding stocks at that time? I'm not even sure if StockTwits was around then, or what were you using, I guess, to find stocks you wanted to trade?
I don't think StockTwits was around. I don't think none of those were around. What I did was whatever I bought, far as to consume, I went out and bought the stock of it, and that was basically it. That was my strategy.
So the Apples, Chipotle, stuff like that?
The Apple, the Nike, the Netflix when it was early. Oh man, I wish I would have stayed in Netflix. Walmart's, the notable ones that majority of people around the world will buy. The first thing that comes to their mind of buying stock, you got to buy these sets of stocks.
Right. So I guess at that time, I would assume day trading, any kind of active trading was not on the forefront at all. You just kind of buy it and check in here and there?
Yeah, well, that first year, I'm gonna say the first year and a half, it was more so, okay, let's build a long-term portfolio, and then I kind of start dabbling in day trading, and to me, day trading was buy a stock long and then sell it at the same time and make 20 cents. I didn't know the concept of options or anything at that point.
This sounds pretty familiar to me. I mean, I started off with the whole mutual fund, and then you start to pay more attention. And then for me, I stumbled on penny stocks, and the rest is kind of history. But that's I think there's probably a lot of journeys out there where you do always start off as portfolio diversification, those blue chip companies, and then I mean, do you recall at all how you even stumbled across day trading? I mean, for me, I remember just watching CNBC and Kramer, and then all of a sudden I bought a stock, and all of a sudden I was up in the stock, and I'm like, wow, I'm up in the stock, and I sold. And so, I mean, Jim Kramer in a weird type of way kind of got me into this whole concept of, well, I guess you don't technically have to hold for 40 years. I mean, do you remember how you all of a sudden stumbled into dabbling into day trading?
Man, Clay, you read my mind. Listen, so I will watch CNBC and all these different shows, and at this time I think I had 100 shares of Nike, and I bought it in the lower or mid 40s, and it went up to I think like $49, $50, and I was probably up about $4,000 to $5,000, and I'm like, oh snap, this is it. I don't need to wait 5 more years. Let me get out 5,000 and get into another stock. And I was just jumping stocks, and that was my kind of day trade strategy.
And did you in hindsight, I realize you call it day trading, but did you think you were day trading at the time, or what did you think you were actually doing?
At the time, I thought I was day trading. Then, once I got educated, I realized that, I was swing trading. I wasn't really day trading.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that makes sense because in hindsight, it's always easy for people to like classify exactly what they were doing. But at that moment in time, good for you. At least you thought you were day trading, but I don't even know if I necessarily knew what that term was before. Yeah, it's weird how journeys unfold. But all right, well, CNBC has also gotten you into active trading, but you already answered. But when you said you bought Netflix back then, I was thinking, oh, please tell me you're still holding. But you immediately informed everybody that unfortunately you weren't still holding that one. But so, okay, you are building an investment portfolio. Then all of a sudden you're starting to dabble in day trading, which you've now said it wasn't really actually day trading. It was more so swing trading. But so you're doing this swing trading, day trading, whatever you thought it was. And then what happened next? I mean, I guess just pick it up from there.
Well, I moved from Atlanta. Well, I moved from New Jersey to Atlanta, and my fiance and my kids, we all moved. And at the time, and I'm just being honest and transparent. What I was making in New Jersey, for a similar job, I was making less, tens of thousands less. So, I'm like, hold up, I had to find a way to compensate for this money. And so my wife, she's a registered nurse. She said, you need to really educate yourself on trading. That maybe that can be the supplement to your salary. And then I started looking for different avenues to educate myself, and I started seeing now. I don't know if I should say his name, but I saw one guy. I actually called him, and I spoke to like two different people, and they's like, well, you're gonna have to put up $20,000. And I'm like, $20,000 just to get educated and start? No, I'm not gonna do that. So then I kind of, a few months, I kind of sat back and kind of relaxed and, continue to educate my own self. And then I think 2014 or 2015, I kind of stumbled on you, a YouTube video of you. And honestly, you sound comforting and you sound like you were an honest guy. And I was like, you know what, I can throw a few dollars out there and see what I can learn.
Now, what happens if I was sorry? No, what happens if I was charging $20,000? Did I still?
Me and you wouldn't be on we wouldn't be on the podcast right now.
I mean, I'm glad you didn't name people because that just makes life easier, so we don't have to worry about cease and desist orders or anything like that.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, just random. We got a cease and desist order. I won't name the company, but because one of our titles was this person has a funded account, these people came at us and was like, wait, we have trademark funded account. You can't use that. And we're like,
wow.
I'm pretty sure that you wouldn't be able to defend that in a court of law, that in the context I use funded account, but it's like, it doesn't really matter. I don't care. Just okay, fine. So we changed the title of the video real quick, but it's just some of that stuff out there it just kind of makes you shake your head. But
everybody know who I'm talking about. That if you're in the trading world, or if you're looking for education, you contact that person. Everybody knows who I'm
okay.
talking about.
Now, did they, out of curiosity, did they lower that price down? Because I know a lot of them, they start high and then it's just like, well, what about X price? Okay, what about Y price? And it keeps going down. Did they do any of that, or did they hold strong at 20?
I think we ended at like between $13,000 and $14,000. And, I'm like, holy shit, like, I can't do this.
Unlike working your way down 30-40%. I mean, obviously they believe in their what they're selling, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it clearly was not overpriced in the Ches, we're going about this the wrong way. I think from now on, we're just going to start them at 20. And if we have to work them all the way down to 2,000, there we go. I mean, we'll come down.
And they feel like they got a great deal too.
Yeah, I mean, but oh, all right, Ches. Well, I rudely interrupted you, but what were you going to ask Maquan?
Well, I was going to say, so if after you found Clay, you think he's a genuine guy and all that, did you just join the community, or did you kind of look into the university program right away, since I do know you are a CTU member?
No, what I did was I was in my Master of Accountancy class, getting my master's in accountancy, and it took me about I'm gonna say it took me a good year until I made the decision, made that leap that, okay, let me just throw this money out there. I think it was January, that whatever that year was, 2015, 2014. I said, you know what? Let me, if I'm gonna do this, I'm the type of person, I want all the education. I don't want bits and pieces. I think, if you have all the education, you can be more successful. So I said, let me just go for the highest package. And the package looked good. I compared your curriculum, whatever you offered, to other people, and I was like, you know what? I feel like I can get a better bang for my buck with this product.
Well, that's good to hear. So obviously you get into the program, you just start diving through the courses, since obviously education is a very, very high priority for you.
Yeah. So what I did was, I knew some stuff how to navigate, and I'm gonna be completely honest. I didn't follow your curriculum, because I knew what I needed to get me started a little bit faster or get me trading a little bit better. So I kind of moved around from different areas of your product, but within, I probably say I spent a good 4 or 5 months, and I got through all the material, and I felt very confident.
Okay, my question is, you knew what you knew what you needed, or you knew what you wanted, so that's why you're jumping around. Did I understand that right?
Yeah. So I wanted to be an expert at chart reading. I wanted to be an expert at risk management, and I wanted to learn some more strategy. So what I did was I kind of looked at those modules first, and once I spent, let me say, an entire month on about 4 modules, and I was already in the mode of being a student, so I took uh, strenuous notes. I was quizzing myself. I was quizzing my fiance. I was quizzing my kids. Just so I can know this stuff. And what happened was I end up knowing it pretty good. And in the middle of me going through that stuff, I actually made a trade, and it wasn't a crazy trade. I made $600 in less than about 4 hours, and I was excited. I felt confident, and that's when I said, you know what? Let me just look at the entire package.
Okay, so that makes sense. And you like you said, you're in kind of student mode, course mode, just education mode, because you're getting these degrees. And I say degrees because you have several degrees, right? I mean, from the email that you sent, I kind of lost track. But one of them, I didn't even know what it meant. But I know you have an MBA, right?
Yep. So I went to the University of Iowa. I had a football scholarship and an academic scholarship. So I actually played football for the University of Iowa.
Wait, what year did you play football for Iowa? What year was that?
02 through 07. 02 through 07.
Wait, were you a wide receiver?
I was a cornerback. I played
cornerback.
Ohio State. Yeah, I played Ohio State twice. When Ted Ginn and Troy Smith and all that was
where were you with Banks, your quarterback? Was that before or after?
That was my freshman year. We went to the Orange Bowl that year. We played USC.
You beat.
Yeah, we beat y'all that year.
Did you start and play and all that stuff?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I started as a true freshman.
Weren't you like an All-American or something?
I wasn't an All-American, but I was All-State coming out of high school. In my college career was cut short. I had 4 knee surgeries, so I tore my knee for every year for 4 years. Every time I played Michigan, I tore my knee, and I think one time after the Ohio State game, that following week, I tore my knee, and then one time, I think it was the first game of the season, my senior year.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe I'm just imagining this, but I feel like I recognize your. I mean, is it possible that an Ohio State fan would know your name, or am I just tricking myself into thinking that I recognize your name?
I wasn't a super mega star, but I did play. I did guard Ted Ginn. I did play against Troy Smith. I think Hartline was there. Hartline was there at the time, the wide receiver.
Yep. Was Robisky there yet?
Robisky, yep. I guarded Robisky, yep. Number 80. He was number 80 for a while.
Yeah, he was. All right. Yeah, there's no way you can be making. I mean, I believe you, but it's just. So Ginn's he was pretty fast, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was pretty fast. But one thing about Ginn, he was probably the faster receivers that don't have route discipline, meaning that they don't run great routes, they're the easiest ones to cover. Not saying I was this freak Deion Sanders and he was easy to guard, but I knew he was just going to run a straight route, a flag or a post or anything like that.
No, that makes sense. Not that, I mean, I played high school football, so I understand the lingo, but that is true. Good route running can make a slow wide receiver much faster. Is that a fair statement?
Oh my God, man. Guarding good route runners. I guarded route runners that were running 4.6s and felt like they were running 4.3s.
All right, dude. Well, all right. I'm going to make this very awkward, and I know you're a busy guy, but I have another podcast on my other site where it's more like Joe Rogan long form style, where you just sit there and talk about whatever you want. But I want you to be a guest on that. And I mean, I could keep talking about this like for the next 3 hours, but Ches, honestly, do you have any idea what we're talking about right now? We're throwing around names and all this stuff, or are you? Ches is probably off watching Netflix right now. He's probably not even paying attention.
Get this guy off, man. Get this guy. We on a trading podcast. Get him off this podcast.
No, not at all. I was just Googling a bunch of stuff, and then I was like, oh, yeah, like all this stuff checks out. But yeah, that's kind of crazy that you totally were on point for that, Clay. Like you absolutely nailed it. But yeah, that's pretty amazing, honestly. Small world, crazy world.
Yeah, all right. I'm looking at your stats right now, Maquan. I'm on ESPN. So you're number 3?
Yeah, I was number 3. My stats, I really don't have no stats. Like I said, I played about 5.
That checks out too, because I'm looking at your stats. There's not a whole lot of numbers, but that makes sense when you got hurt.
I play like 4 or 5 games every season, and then so I tore my knee. I tore my right knee twice. I tore my left knee twice, and then the 5th time I tore it, I kind of just took a medical red shirt and graduated.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I got it. Like I said, it's not that I didn't believe you, but it's just like, I thought for a second, I was like, but all right. Anyways. All right. So you went to Iowa, you played football there. How were you get? Oh, okay. And so that's where you got your first degree, at Iowa. So pick it back up from there. Cause I now remember I was asking you about, I know you have quite a few degrees. So that's what brought you to the whole question of, well, I went to the Iowa and got your first degree. So pick it back up from that point.
Yeah. So I went to Iowa. I wanted to be a doctor, but when I start playing football, I'm like, you know what, class is not for me. And I had a crazy bad GPA, so I had to go into business. Got a business and an accounting degree, and then
I love it. As an engineer, I love that. That was always the joke: is, oh, you're a business major. I love how you had a crazy bad GPA, so you had to go into business. I'm sorry, but that was fantastic.
Yeah. So then I moved back to New Jersey, and worked for politicians. I was actually in a lot of senators, congressmen, House reps. I represented a lot of them. And after like my second year being home in New Jersey, I just, me and my family, we wanted to move somewhere else. And I had one of my college teammates who got drafted to the Atlanta Falcons. His name, Jonathan Babineau. He got drafted to Atlanta Falcons, and it was Peyton Manning's first year on the Broncos. They were playing a Monday night game against Atlanta Falcons, and he flew me out for my birthday. I was expecting to be out there for a day, ended up being out there for an entire 2 months. And you know what? I said, I'm coming back to Atlanta in 2013, and I've been out here ever since. And then that's where I got my degree, my master's of accountancy, and then my master's of business administration from Mercer University.
Okay. And I just and this goes back to the people that were trying to imply that Maquan is like some degenerate gambler that just is out there doing random stuff. I mean, this is somebody that knows how to think for himself. You don't get all these degrees if you're a total moron. So let's just keep things in perspective here as we eventually will get to that certain trade. But all right, so I don't even know. Okay, so let's circle. I'm so fired. I'm such a geek. All right. Anyways, you and Jonathan Babineau, is he still playing right now? All right, don't answer that. Don't answer that. No more football talk, okay?
No more football
talk, Clay. Yeah, no, we'll tackle that on the other podcast. So, you knew what you needed. Okay, I know I want to learn charts. Okay, I know I need to learn how to manage risk. And then all of a sudden, you decide, okay, well, I'm just going to go with the whole package. So you got the whole package. You made that first trade. And like you said, it was a $600 trade. And is it, are we still during this time? Is this still 2015 ish, or is this a little bit?
Yeah, this 2015 ish. So that 2015 year was a kind of roller coaster year for me. I made some good trades, but I still haven't. I didn't refine my strategy. Wasn't there, so I couldn't duplicate or repeat what I did. So I spent, one trade I make 1,000, another trade I make another 1,200, and then I got up to like 17,000 just on profit, and then a month or two later I'm down to $4,000, and I'm like, hold up, how did I get from 17,000? I mean, and I started with a count of $500. How did I get from $500 to 17,000, and now I'm back at 4,000, and I realized you just been doing stuff. You don't have a strategy. You don't have steps to follow. And in my life, everybody that know me, I'm a strategic person. Like I don't do something if it don't fit in the steps of the process of the way I do things. So I spent the later part of 2015 and early to mid 2016 just kind of finding a strategy. And what I sent you the other day, and I don't want to put my strategy out there, what I sent you in that text message, that was my strategy. And from there I start taking off.
Okay. All right. So I realize that, I mean, you said you gave a good reason of why you would go from 17,000 down to 4,000 is because you were kind of just out doing stuff. Or in other words, you didn't really have a strategy, but define doing stuff. Were you just not using stop losses, not honoring stop losses? Were you averaging down? I mean, what was the quote unquote stuff that you were doing that was dragging your account back down to those areas?
I wasn't using stop losses. I didn't have a defined method of getting into a trade. I was following news when, news, it really didn't match up with the support and resistance and all the other things I use now. I didn't like if it was somebody said something, I would just jump in. And that was basically doing stuff. Like I just was doing stuff. And then sometimes I will bet, like earlier when I was at the early hundreds, $500, $600, $700, I wouldn't put no more than a few $100s into a trade. And when I got past the 10,000 mark, I start finding myself in one trade, and I'm up to 8,000 in this one trade, and I only got 1,000, 2,000 left in my account. I'm like, hold up, that's why I lost all my money. I was putting more money in trades when in the past I wasn't doing that. So I kind of had to realize that as I lost.
Well, yeah, you didn't have, anything solid down. Sure, you knew how to push the buy and sell button, but regardless of that, when you're kind of all over the place, your results are going to be mixed. Just like you said, you go up to 17,000, then you take a look. It's like you feel like you blink your eyes and we're back down to 3 or 2. How did this happen? So obviously that's what you would consider the wake-up call, right? When you kind of took a look at that account and said, there's something missing here.
Yep, that was the wake-up call, and then that's when I spent that later 2015, 2016 and kind of, develop a strategy.
Now, when you say develop a strategy, and like I said, you don't have to go directly into it, how did you even go about starting that? I'm talking about from like the broadest aspects. And, just for example's sake, did you say, oh, I can see potential breakouts really easily, or I'm really good at buying pullbacks? Was there some kind of overarching start, and then you started kind of practicing that? Or, did you paper trade stuff? How did you narrow down that strategy? Because we get asked that all the time. Can I have your strategy or something? I go, everyone's going to have a different strategy. It's just all about modifying it so it fits for you.
I looked at all my trades when I was at $3,000 or lower, and realized, how did I make these gains, and how much were the gains? And I start seeing a pattern. I start matching things up. I start matching indicators up. I start matching the RSI, the EMAs, I start matching all the VWAPs. I start matching everything up, and I said, you know what? If I make a 7-step strategy and follow these same rules, every trade, even if something sound good but it don't fit my 7-step strategy, I'm not going to get in. But if it do, that's the perfect time to get in and use my strategy. And that's where I start developing my strategy. And I didn't use a platform to paper trade. I was more so paper trading in my head. I'm a person that can process things in your head. So I was paper trading in my head. I would look at, I had my 7 steps already concrete in my head. And what I would do was I look at a stock and say, okay, bam, this is perfect. It fits step 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and so on. I will get in at this point. And then I screenshot it, and then I look at it for throughout the day while I'm at work and say, okay, I get out at this point, and it fit all my seven steps, and I get out and I start seeing, oh man, when I go home later that night, I'm seeing the screenshots of when I would have bought and when I would have sold, and every time I screenshot my mental paper trade, I noticed, okay, if I'll just follow this, and I did that for like 2 months. If I just follow this, I can really make some money in this world.
So, and I mean, that's awesome. And I'm sure some listeners out there are going to be like, oh, seven steps. That's got to be like a really rigid criteria. I'm sure it's probably something as simple as it's got to have this much volume, or it's got to trade above this price. I mean, like that kind of criteria. You say 7, and some people are going to be like, wow, that's a ton. I assure you, there's people in the search of the Holy Grail that have like 75 criteria, and that trade comes around once a decade, and you're only able to back test it like 3 times over the past 100 years. So, 7 is actually, that's a nice, easy, like you said, manageable number, and being good in your head and being able to kind of figure that out, that's fantastic. So after you kind of get this criteria,
let me step in here though. Also, Ches, not to be rude, but first off, Ches makes an excellent point. Absolutely, criteria does not need to be 75 steps. But if you're thinking, well, geez, there's 7 steps. Yeah, there is more that goes into trading than reading something on a social media site and then just going and buying. Yeah, I get it. That's pretty convenient. It's like a 1-step process. But I get it. Ches is saying it doesn't need to be overly complicated, but there does also need to be some thought and some logic that goes into this stuff. So yes, 7 steps, even if he had said 10 steps, I get it. Because to Chez's point again, some of these steps can just be, all right, let's check a volume criteria. Okay, that's met.
Yep.
Let's check this criteria. That's met. So, I mean, it's not, and this is why go ahead.
Not to cut you off, cut you off, Clay, but I'll probably say half of those steps are really one step. Like you can go through 4 or 5 of my steps and say, okay, this is all one step. I can find that in 5 seconds. And then, the other 2 steps are steps where you're just trying to get it in position to make the right move.
Well said. And as a former process engineer, I'm all about steps. And steps are important because they get your mind to work in a certain way. I mean, when you think about it, let's just say as a listener, brushing your teeth. That is a super, super multi-step process. But it's not like you sit there and think about it anymore and you're like, step 1, walk to sink. Step 2, open up drawer. Step 3. I mean, you don't do that. Yes, all those are steps, but when your mind and when you just practice something and do something over and over again, Maquan, I mean, that makes, yes, you can easily go through 5 steps in 2 seconds when your mind gets wired in the way. I mean, for my process, I don't even know how many steps I have for my strategy, but I know I've done it enough where if I actually sat down there and had to map out, do this, there's probably quite a few steps, but a lot of those steps, which you need to focus on at first so that you can get your mind to operate in a certain way. But after your mind starts to operate in a certain way, then, well, you don't need to think about it anymore. I mean, it just becomes very natural. So I don't want it. I can see people like, what's this guy talking about? 7 steps, but yet he can do 5 of them real quick, 2 seconds in his head. I mean, I assure you, listener, you can do probably just the same. Go put on your clothes. That's a 100-step process, but you do it in 2 seconds and you don't even have to think about the process because your brain gets wired in that way. So, but I do like Maquan, and a great example of how you did. You first started off with all those steps. And I mean, it sounds like you kind of broke what could be considered a single step into even more steps, but that's very wise because and to your point, like you said, that's very strategic because that's a great way to get you to act, to get your mind to function in the way it's got to be. So, that's like I said,
and not to cut you off, Clay. So those steps, I wouldn't have came to those steps if it wasn't for your education, to be honest with you. Like each part of those steps I learned from watching your videos. So I was able to master each part of those steps, and in the steps, those 7 steps now, and even when I first started off and started using those steps, it probably took me about 50 seconds to go through everything. Now, I probably can go through everything in about 10 seconds. It's repetitious. So like I'm an accountant, and in the accounting world is always steps to recognize revenue. Like you got to have certain steps for it's law to recognize certain revenues. And I just was using that same concept with trading stocks.
I love it. That's how you do it. And just to clarify, I do not sell the system that Maquan is using. I sell the program will teach you the tools, and you can take those tools and build a strategy that works for you. And that's what Maquan is talking about. Maquan is not saying that he bought some sort of magical, mystical course that I offer, and all of a sudden he had all this right there on a silver platter. No, I taught Maquan the tools. He took those tools and molded and built something that fit into his personal time schedule and his personal risk tolerance level. So just to keep things completely clear there, I really don't want to have our inbox blown up with, I want Maquan's strategy that he said he bought from you. No, that's Maquan's. I'll teach you the tools, but it's up to you to build the strategy. So you said screenshot. Did you mean a mental screenshot when you were building that, or were you literally taking like a screenshot of your computer for documentation, or like from your computer or phone or whatever for documentation's sake?
Let's be clear. I never traded on a computer. I use the the Thinkorswim platform, but I never used the laptop computer. I work about 9 hours a day, so I'm trading while I'm at work. I trade everything off of the app on my phone. So when I find something, I'm screenshotting on my phone. I got over thousands of pictures that's in my phone of different stocks, and the screenshots that I did when I was doing, I call it mental paper trading. I was screenshotting the shots on my phone, and then when I go home later, I will look at those screenshots and see if they fit what I was trying to do.
Well, geez, Maquan, that sounds like kind of a lot of work. Are you telling me that you can't just randomly follow people on social media and make up? You mean you have to that's the effort it takes to figure out a strategy, is have thousands of pictures of charts so you can go back home and analyze stuff after the market closes? I mean, listeners, that's an
accumulation of over a few years. I will have no more than about 6 pictures in a given day.
But my point is this, is you were documenting things during the day so that you could go home after the day and then study what you documented during the day. There's a lot of effort that's going into that, right, Ches? I mean, Ches and I, we see a lot of people in the customer service, and people show up and it's like, I don't really think you know what's actually required to make this work. I mean, Ches, we see that quite a bit, whereas here's Maquan snapping screenshots so that he can later go home and study stuff some more. I mean,
I think we might be able to tell people what's required, but the thing that I think what you're really saying is that most people don't have the willpower to follow through. So I'm sure Maquan could tell you literally every single thing he does in his trading, and I bet you 85% of the people who heard it wouldn't be able to follow through it or stick with it, or they find an excuse on why not to do it. So yeah, I fully agree with that. Well, it requires effort. You have to be dedicated to doing it. It's not just something you do whenever you feel like. I think that's the big key between who gets far and who doesn't.
Yeah, no, well said. And that's true. Maquan, he could walk us through the 7 steps. And I mean, even if he did walk through the 7 steps, that doesn't mean that would work for you, because let's keep this. I'm going to love this example. Why is there no such thing as a one size fits all strategy? Well, it's got to do with personal risk tolerance. Usually I use the example of, as an example, if I said, hey, I want to have fun, and somebody sold me a course and said, you have fun by going skydiving. For me personally, I'm going to say, no, that doesn't sound fun at all. I would much rather do something much more mild. But you could be sitting there thinking, what are you talking about? Skydiving sounds awesome. Well, there we have it. Personal risk tolerance. In Maquan's case, he defines fun as trying to rip somebody's head off on the football field. He wants to lay somebody out that's coming across the middle. That is his definition of fun. You may be thinking, Clay, that was a very savage statement you just said. Listen, I've played football. I know the mentality you have to have on defense. I mean, I get it. I may have just sounded like a barbarian to you, but that proves my point. Personal risk tolerance. I mean, we all view the world a little differently. So that is why, to Chez's point, yeah, Maquan could lay it all out, but that doesn't mean that you're going to, A, understand it, B, be able to follow it. And that's nothing against you. That just, well, it could be against you if you don't. Just because you understand it doesn't mean you're actually going to be able to follow it. And there's no guarantee you'd be able to follow it because of the risk tolerance. But I realize I'm beating lots of dead horses, viewers or listeners, but there's a trade we're coming on that's I just don't want you to run out there and be like, oh, I can, because that's not what we're trying to convey here. We're just trying to really convey that there's been a lot of time. There's been a lot of effort. There's been a lot of screenshots and going home and studying after his normal job in order to, get these, dynamics into place. So you're doing this, you figure out the 7-step strategy. And I mean, is that what you've been doing ever since?
I've been doing it ever since. It works perfect for me because I can't trade and watch the screen every day for 8 hours. I work in finance at a big company, and I manage over 65 budgets. That's doing over $1 million each. So I don't have the time to actually sit and watch the trade. So that's why I had to form a strategy that fits for me, and it actually works. I've been I took a lot of losses. I'm not gonna say I didn't take a lot of losses. I took losses, but my gains were a little bit better than my losses. So I was able to use that strategy to make a reasonable gain by year's end.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because not that I thought you were going to say that, but if you would have shown up and been like, yeah, in this strategy, I never take losses, I'd be like, okay, well, now we have our first red flag. But you just said the exact opposite. You take losses, but that's the whole thing is that's risk versus reward. And for you longtime listeners, I mean, you've heard Ches and I talk about this time and time again. You don't have to. You could theoretically lose more than you win, but if those wins are good sized wins, well, then there you go. Me, on the other hand, I'm the exact opposite. I win a whole lot of the time, but I do lose. And when I do lose, that can wipe away a good, a chunk of those gains. But to steal something from Maquan at year's end, hey, you know what? Year's end, that's what matters is, are you paying taxes? Are you getting a tax write-off? Because that's what really matters at the end of the day. As traders, we want to be paying taxes because that means, well, you turn a profit on the year. So how you get there, whether it's a high win rate strategy or a strategy where you take losses, and maybe you take a lot of losses, but if you have wins that are big wins, well, that can equal it out. So I guess my question to you is, would you say that you lose more than you win, or what's kind of the breakdown as far as the win rate?
I'm probably at I say 70-30 win gains. I probably make because I'm not trying to lose a lot. So if I'm in a trade and I got 5,000 on the line, I say I lose $400 and that's it, and I'm moving on to the next. Like for example, that the trade that we're about to talk about, that week alone I lost $676 or something like that. But at the end of the week, I was up $28,500. So that's the level of wins to losses that I kind of take. I don't put my entire account out there and say, okay, I'm gonna shoot for the stars. No, I'm gonna do it strategically, take incremental gains, and then go from there.
Well, I keep hearing about this trade, which I'm still unaware of. So, Clay, is it? Can we start talking about that trade now, or you guys are just leaving me in the dark here?
I mean, I want to tell you to just go watch the YouTube channel since I did a vlog on it. And
gotcha. Well, we can link that then. That's fine. I thought you were gonna go into detail about it on the podcast. Perfect. Yeah, we'll link that in the description then.
No. I'm just I am gonna press some more on it, but the trade is I'm just gonna let the cat out of the bag. $400 to 20. I say 400, and I rounded up because with all your commissions factored in, it was like $386. So I just call it $400 to 29,000, right?
Yep. If I had a promoter and the promoter name was Don King, he would say it was the trade that shot the world. let me stop.
No, that's fine. Now the critique is whatever. Maquan was just gambling. It was now, and what I'm trying to tell people, and correct me if I'm wrong, you did not get into that trade thinking that was going to happen, right?
Listen, I was planning on making $400 or $500.
Okay, so you got into the trade thinking, yeah, I think this thing, and like I said, Maquan, he sent me an email, and I totally respect him. He's put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to build a strategy. So what is it, Maquan? If he doesn't want to tell us, hey, that's on him, and I don't blame him at all because I know what it takes. But it's a lot of people in the comment section were like, charts aren't going to tell you that sort of gap up is going to happen. And I'm thinking, where did I ever say Maquan said he knew that a gap up to that extent was going to happen? Of course, he thought the price would go in his direction somewhat to turn a profit, but nowhere did he nor I or anybody ever proclaim that his strategy or the chart itself or that technical analysis as a tool, its chart, was able to predict the sort of gap up that you got, right? I understand that, right? You thought the price would go in your favor, but you never thought that you didn't know that the trade of the century was coming your way, right?
Not at all. I was watching the stock. I actually made $6,000. I think 3 weeks earlier on SunTrust earnings, and I was kind of watching it ever since. I was waiting for it to drop to a certain level because I knew, if it dropped to a certain level, then it's going to move in the next 3 weeks. And that trade that I got in, I think it was for like 4 weeks out. I was anticipating like a $2-3 move. If I made $500, $600 on it that week, I was going to get out and I wasn't going to move forward, but that didn't happen.
Okay. Now my question is, earlier you had mentioned, if you have, let's say $5,000 on the line. So is that a safe assumption that in some trades you will put $5,000 into a trade?
Oh yeah. I put a few times I put more than $12,000 into a trade,
okay.
$15,000 into a trade.
Perfect. So my question is, this one you only put in $400. So what is dictating whether or not you're going to put in $400 into a trade versus whether you're going to put $5,000 or $12,000 into a trade?
I was in two other. Well, that trade in particular, I think the option was just so cheap for 4 weeks out, and it was like $3 out of the money. I said, you know what? Even if it don't touch that strike price, and the option price move up 10 cents, I can make $1,000, $500 to $1,000. I know it's going to do that sometime soon in the next 3 weeks, and I said, you know what? For 3 cents, I can buy 10,000 shares for $400.
10,000 contracts.
Yeah, 10,000. 100 contracts.
Yeah. Sorry.
Contracts.
Yeah. No, you're. 100 contracts, which would equate to. There we go. Okay. Now, so you did realize that there was more risk involved, right? Because the price would have to move quite a bit for you to start to realize some gains. But and again, I don't want to speak for you so by all means, cut me off. But it sounds like you factored in that risk that you knew that the price would have to move quite a bit. But you just reduce your risk massively by only putting $400 into the trade. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement. And also what I seen was the spread on it, weekly spread was it was moving like $2 to $2.75 a week. So I said, okay, if it moved $2 and my delta is 17 cents, man, that's $1,700 I just made. So, I was cool with risking $400 to make 17, but really I only won about $500 off that trade because I was in other trades.
Okay, good. So to the YouTube commenters out there that somehow thought that Maquan or I was trying to imply that he got in because he thought he was going to make $29,000. You thought you were going for like $500, right?
Yeah. I thought I was going for 500.
Okay, there we go. So, I mean, nowhere, just please, all I ask is please stop accusing Maquan or my explanation of trying to imply that somehow this strategy or Maquan knew that the thing was going to do what it did, because no, a chart is not going to tell you any of that. Charts are used to manage, to help you formulate trade plans, but they're not a voodoo crystal ball that's going to tell you some sort of big move like that. How did you actually, I mean, I know you had traded SunTrust earlier. How did you ever, because that's not really a big ticker set like Apple, Netflix, Facebook. All right, yeah, a lot of SPY. A lot of people are going to be trading those options. So how did you ever arrive on SunTrust in the first place?
Because I'm in the home, like I literally work. I think this is the headquarters, SunTrust headquarters, and I work down the street from their headquarters, and I drive by all the time, and in December I said, let me see how much SunTrust is trading for, and I kind of watched it for a couple of weeks, and then I saw that they were reporting, and this was like a week before I had bought a contract. I think I bought 100 contracts for like a 4-week period, 4-week expiration, and the earnings was favorable, and I kind of made some money, and then I said, let me sit on it, let it drop back down because I know it's overbought right now, and if it go to a certain price, I jump back in.
Now you don't work for SunTrust though, right? You're just in the general area where they're based.
Yeah, I don't work for SunTrust.
Okay, all right. I'm thinking, wait a second here, Maquan. You work for SunTrust, and then you nailed a SunTrust trade. So, all right, good.
No, I don't work for SunTrust.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know anything about SunTrust, so there's no insider trading or anything like that.
Right, yeah, no, I'm not gonna lie. For a second, I was like, did he just say he worked for SunTrust? But no, you said you are in they're based there or something. So you drive by. All right, that makes sense. I just wanted to make. So
SunTrust is big in Atlanta.
Okay, there we go. So, and I'm sure anybody in Atlanta would confirm that. But
yeah,
that was cause. Oh, what is it? Okay, that makes sense. So, all right, now the trade I guess walk us through that, because you get in, you have your plan, which we've talked about. I mean, did you have to change your underwear after you saw what was happening? I mean, walk us through that morning, because I would imagine that was probably a pretty interesting story.
So that day, when I got in, I was in meetings all day, and I wasn't able to do any trades. And I noticed that I was in like 4 other trades, and I'm like, okay, I think I was up all 4 trades. I think I was up about $1,600, and I said, I got out of those trades, and I said, let me look at SunTrust. I think I was walking from a restaurant on a lunch break. Well, it was a lunch meeting, and I walked past the SunTrust building, and I said, you know what? Let me check SunTrust. And I Googled their ticker symbol, and I put it in Thinkorswim, and I was like, holy crap, this I can get something for 3 cents. And I think the in the money strike was, the strike price that was right out of the money, I think it was like at 47 cents. And I said, hold up, let me look at the range, the 2-week range, the week range. Let me see how it's trading. And I said, if I get a 4-week, and I went through my steps, and I said, okay, it had the possibility of reaching my strike price over the next 4 weeks. So I saw that it was at 3 cents. I tried to get in at 1 cent. So I tried to spend $100 to get 100 contracts, but that didn't fill. And then I moved up to $2. That didn't fill. And I said, I just made $1,600. Let me put $400 out there and get into this trade. And I think that was like 2:40 p.m., an hour and a half before closing. And then I think at 4 a.m. the next day, BB&T announced that they're acquiring SunTrust. And I wake up around like 4:30, 4:40-ish. And I saw that, and I looked at the option, and I saw that it was over my strike price. I'm like, holy crap. So and I kind of did the calculation in my head. I'm like, this got the potential of being at least $1.99. So I just made $19,000 off of $400. And when I woke up, I went to my CFO office, because he traded. He actually used he called in a broker, and I'll be trying to tell him, like, you don't need all that, but he called in a broker. He's old school, call in a broker and make his trades. So I went in his office. I'm like, look, when the bell opened at 9:30, I'm getting out of this because I could make 19,000. So when the bell opened, we were in a meeting from 9 to like 9:30. So I didn't catch it until like 9:45. Well, 9:30, 9:32. So when I caught it, I got out, and that's when I made the money. And like 30, 40 minutes later, that same contract that I got out of at 299, it went up to like 478. So I could have had made close to $50,000 off of it. So I was kicking myself for that.
Well, obviously you still, that's just absolutely crazy, but I do love that you kind of went up to your CFO and you're like, I'm getting out of this at 9:30. But yeah, that is pretty wild. So obviously, you focused on this stock. Do you generally trade kind of a basket of the same stocks or options, or do you just kind of rely strictly on your scans?
So I'm a firm believer, and some people might not like this idea. I feel like if I master like 150 stocks and know the support and resistance on those stocks for a week, for a day, for a year, then I can make some consistent gains. And that's I got like 20 watch lists of about 150, 200 stocks, and I kind of know their patterns. I mastered their patterns.
So, in other words, we kind of call that, all stocks have a personality. And for you longer time listeners, you've heard us talk about it. In fact, I have a video on YouTube about, I think it's called Getting Romantic or something like that, but the idea is if you pay attention and watch a stock or, anything, they behave in a certain way and you just get to know them. And Chez, is that a pretty accurate? I'm trying to, it's kind of hard to describe unless you've been there and you've watched a ticker trade over and over and over again. But they just have stocks have their own little personalities, right?
Yeah. And especially a lot of the things I always see is how do they move in terms of SPY? Like if SPY takes a big move up or down, does this generally overshoot it? Is this more muted? Just like I said, they all have their own personality, but with a little bit of time, that's why you have a lot of options traders who strictly focus on a basket and they watch maybe 6 to 8 stocks total. And they know that, these generally have a lot of opportunities, but yeah, they definitely have a personality.
Yeah. And to Maquan's point, he goes well beyond, the 5 or 6 stocks. And you just, like I said, that's why everybody's different. Me personally, I don't think I'd ever be able to go that far and remember the personalities of so many different stocks. But that's just because I'm not Maquan. And that's just how our brains are wired. Everybody's brains are a little bit wired. But again, going back to the central theme, this is exactly why there is no one-size-fits-all strategy. Think about it. Maquan could say, well, first thing, if he was selling his strategy, first thing you got to do is you got to, get very familiar with 100 stocks. People are thinking, I can't do that. I can barely count to 10. How am I supposed to get familiar with the personality? But for Maquan, that's just, he can do that. Maybe you're sitting there saying, what's the big deal? I could do that too. That's good for you. But that's just why there's no one size fits all strategy. So it sounds like you just, you map out supports, resistance levels. So you're using the chart, and then just based off how your mind works, you just kind of start to get the feel of how the price interacts with certain levels of support and resistance and all of that. Is that a fair summary of kind of how you are, kind of getting to know their personality is just based off those supports and resistance levels and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's the basic summary. So every Sunday, what I do is I created this Excel spreadsheet. So every Sunday, I spend at least two hours just going through those stocks and just looking how they perform over the past week and in the previous week. See does it confirm what where it's going to perform for the future, like the forecast. And I kind of look at the stocks. Okay, these are my 150 that I went through, and I can go through them and within like 20, 30 minutes now because I have my strategies and everything lined up. I'm used to them. And then I pick out the ones that, okay, I'm going to look at these 20 for this week. And I create a watch list specifically for those 20. And then that's all I'm focusing on for that week.
Okay, cool. So it sounds like it's a funnel. The broad funnel is there's like 100, 150 stocks, but then you quickly funnel those out, filter them out, and all of a sudden you're left with about 20-ish stocks. And then you put those 20 stocks on the watch list for that particular week. Is that an accurate understanding?
That's an accurate understanding.
Okay, cool. So it's kind of like you're scouting the other team and you have a kind of a broad sense, but then you got to narrow things down. Okay, well now, yeah, that's how their offense as a whole operates. But if I want to be guarding such and such, well, I got to kind of get to know his tendencies. And then, okay, well, especially, so it's basically like you're diagnosing game film. But
Clay. That's Clay. Listen, that's $1 million example right there. That's exactly how my brain works. I'm a football player, Clay. So guess what?
So am I. That's how I kind of diagnose all this stuff.
That's how it works. So if I'm preparing, so okay, in college, and this is what people don't understand. So when you're a football player, right? They think you're preparing for the team ahead of you, but honestly, we already prepared for them last week. We're preparing for the next week. So how my brain work is, I'm looking at a set of plays that they run. I'm looking at how they react to certain 4th and 10, 3rd and 1, and so on and so on. And I'm looking for how they act on certain field possessions, if the ball on the hash or in the middle of the field. So that's exactly how I work in a stock market with those 150 stocks. So I kind of, okay, these stocks are going to perform this way this week. So I'm only going to focus on these 15, 20 stocks. And that's exactly how I kind of do it. So you hit the nail on the head, Clay. Great job.
Yeah.
Pat yourself on the back.
Say, well, every now and then a blind squirrel finds a nut. So I guess that's just kind of how it works. But I mean, that's why I always have to laugh when people are like, charts tell you past history. What good is past history? It's like, well, I don't know about you, but Mr. Critique that's saying that. And I always use this as an example. Let's say there's two teams playing each other. A beats team B 30-2. A beats team B 70-1. A beats team 25-1. And then if I said, okay, so who do you think is going to win game 4? And if I said team B, you would look at me like a crazy person and say, what are you talking about? A has been steamrolling team B the previous 3 games. Why would you choose B? But it's just like, and then you trick him. You're like, well, because I used past history. That's how things have gone in the past. Is that a guarantee? No. But it's same, with the playbook, right? I mean, if a team has certain tendencies, well, how do you figure out those tendencies? Well, you have to look at like the past history. And that's what chart is. Yes, it is past history. But Ches, there's power in past history, isn't there?
Well, I mean, history repeats itself. That's just kind of something that happens. But by no means, just like you said, it's not guaranteed, but I mean, the odds are definitely more stacked in your favor. It definitely doesn't hurt. I'll tell you that. It's better than just flipping a coin heads or tails and making a decision off of that.
No, absolutely. Well, Maquan, man, we've been here an hour, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day and walking us through all this stuff. But I kind of want to end on that high note. I feel good that I got you fired up with that analogy there, and I'm glad I could I realize that, yeah, if you've never really, and it's not even necessarily that, have you ever played an instrument? You got to there's just a thought process that goes into things. And, Maquan just looks at it like his playing days. He's looking at it like a playbook, and you got to scout out the other team. But that's just kind of how this works is you got to put in time, you got to put in effort. Losses are going to happen. And there's no really way to avoid that. Do you have any sort of, I guess, I don't know, if somebody was like, hey, Maquan, that trait was really motivating. I want to be like that. What would you tell that person that says, Maquan, man, that trait is awesome. I want to do that. Tell me something. What would you tell that person?
Pack your patience. Educate yourself.
I like that. It's as simple as that. Don't rush into anything, right?
Yep. Pack your patience, educate yourself, because what I learned in the stock market, you can make a lot of money, but you can lose everything. And you don't want to lose everything being emotional and jumping into something that, really don't make no sense. So educate yourself, find what you do best. What Clay do best might not work for you. What I do best might not work for you. What the next person do best might not work for you. But educate yourself. and kind of practice with some of those strategies that you want to implement. And if it worked 9 times out of 10, okay, try to utilize it live. After you battle tested it, and and pack your patience, man, because education and patience is the key in this game.
And I couldn't agree more. And I kind of completely agree with Clay. That's a fantastic way to kind of leave it. But first off, thank you so much for being a guest today. Now, I'll be interested to hear what advice you're going to give yourself. So if I were to lend you my time machine and you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that advice be?
Educate yourself. As simple as that. I wish I would have got educated before I started actually trading my live money. And I never really utilized paper trading. I started out with my live money, and I lost a few. But once you educate yourself and kind of find what works best for you, I think that's the key. I would have did that.
And you were not receiving any compensation to say that, right?
Nope, I didn't. Clay is not giving. He took my money, but he's not giving me no money.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. So I don't want to hear it. This is all staged. It's a sales pitch. You're paying him to say that. I promise. I like how he said, I took his money years ago, but no, he is not being. That was his answer. None of that was staged at all.
Clay,
but now,
Clay, can I get a job, Clay? Can I have a job?
I don't know. I might just hand you all my money and say, let's go. But no, what man, you never know. You never know. But it sounds like you got a system that works, and you got not only that. I mean, you're an accountant. You got are you a CPA? Is that, or is there a difference between?
Yeah, so I'm a CPA candidate. I actually take a test, one of my exams next month.
Okay. All right. So no wonder why it was a little difficult to get you on the podcast, because you are a busy guy. And then I didn't realize that you're also studying for the CPA test. So yeah, everything makes so much more sense. I got to tell a quick story here, just because, I mean, it's funny to laugh about now, because especially listening to your life and your story and how busy you actually are. And then of course you just doing the CPA, but Maquan and I were, because he sent me a very kind email and said, hey, thanks a lot for the education, all that stuff. And then he told me about the trade, and I was like, well, can I get some proof? So he sent me over the proof, and then, well, can I see your thought process? Because I don't want to go and talk about this publicly if it just was totally a random gamble. And then he sent me the email with everything mapped out. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then I said, hey, do you want to be on the podcast? And yeah, that's great. I'll be on the podcast. And then silence. Nothing. And I'm like, maybe that wasn't a real. I was like, but I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I guess I can't necessarily recognize Photoshop, but everything he sent me, and in the amount of time he sent me in, I don't think that would be, I mean, because that was like really fast that he was replying back. So I guess maybe he could Photoshop it in 2 minutes, but that looked pretty legit for a 2-minute Photoshop job. But maybe that was all fake, because why is he not replying? Why is he not talking with Nate? And Nate's the guy that sets up. I mean, what is going on? So I sent him an email. I was like, so I'm a little, I mean, do you want to be on the podcast, or what exactly is going on? And he was like, no, man, I just been traveling. I got a family, and which I totally understand. And I almost feel bad now that I was pressuring you when you probably should be studying for that CPA test. But here we are. But I thought it was a funny story where I started to kind of question. I'm like, oh crap, are those people on YouTube right? Is this a totally fake trade?
Clay, during the week, I work my job, and then I also do some tutoring for kids in statistics class. And on the weekends, my son, he's a pilot. He's a 12-year-old pilot, and his video actually went viral. He flies airplanes, and him and his pilot class is flying to Iceland tomorrow. So, that's why we couldn't get in contact to actually do the podcast. But I'm here now. I'm real. The 4 to 29,000 is real. So if you have any questions, go through Clay. Try to get in contact with me. I'm real. I'm here. It happened.
No, don't do that. I am not I will not give you Maquan's personal information. I will say this though, and I'm so proud of myself. Listen how I'm going to plug this, and I like to do this because it really irritates some listeners out there that are like, "Oh, it's all about the product sale." I'm not even going to. No, go to the video, and like Ches said, we'll link it in the show notes. But just go to YouTube. It's how to turn $400 into $29,000. And Maquan commented on that video. So if you want to talk with him or grill him or whatever, go to that video, watch the video, click the like button, subscribe to the channel. But then you can also, leave Maquan. So is that fair, Maquan? If people want to get a hold of you, is that a good way to go about it?
Yeah, so that's fair. So you see my name, Maquan Dawkins. That's my real government name. In the picture in there, that thumbnail is me in a Capital One Bowl. If you look at the 2005 Capital One Bowl, Iowa was playing Jamarcus Russell at LSU, and that's Joseph Adai. If you're familiar with LSU legends and Indianapolis Colts legends, he's a running back. So that's number 10. So that's what you're going to see. You're going to see me on top of Joseph Adai and my name saying Maquan Dawkins. That's how you get in contact with me on YouTube.
There you go. So if you think that this is all staged and fake, I don't know. I mean, we have been accused of literally scripting out. Somebody literally was like, no, I'm dead serious. The whole podcast is fake. Every single one of those guests has a script. It's literally all fake. I was like, well, you're telling me that.
Well, Clay, let me go off script. I do not have experience with Photoshop. I wish I had that technique or that skill, but I do not know how. I barely know how to screenshot. I just learned how to screenshot a few years ago. So I do not know how to write, type, or do any of that photo art stuff. I don't do that.
No, I fully believe you. I did waver a little bit when you went silent, but now that we're here, and I mean, it makes sense now. That's awesome about your son, but that makes sense. But you got to come on my other podcast. So I want to ask you so many stories about. I mean, you're tackling all these NFL pro.
Clay, I can get so many guys on your podcast, man. I have former teammates in the NFL and in college and in CFL. I can get people.
Well, on your podcast. We got to talk. I'm not going to lose your email. Let me put it that way, because that probably wouldn't fit in here, but for my, you're a numbers guy, you're a finance guy. My moneywithclay.com site and that podcast, that could be some really cool guests. Yeah. So if you're being serious, I'm totally not going to lose your email, because that sounds like it could be some super interesting guests, but, where were we, Ches?
You let me know, Clay. I'm here. I have one of my college teammates he was the MVP of the CFL, and he dominated Ohio State. So you guys can get on there and debate.
What's his name?
That. His name Jovan.
I remember that Iowa team.
Jovan Johnson. That's Jovon Johnson. He probably
was he a wide receiver?
He was a cornerback.
Okay. I remember Banks. I remember that quarterback.
I can get Brad Banks. Brad Banks is on. Listen, I can connect you, dog. I can connect you.
All right. You heard it publicly. The Money with Clay podcast at some point is going to have Brad Banks on it, because I can't stand that guy because he beat my Buckeyes, but I respect him because he was a baller in college for sure. But Maquan, we lied to the guests. We said no more football talk, and we just talked football again. So we have to move on. What is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie, and this is going to blow you. Super Bad.
That's a classic.
That's it. It is a classic. My mind. I mean, I can respect that, because that movie, Jonah Hill, Michael's what's his name? Whatever. Yeah, that's
them.
You've
guys,
actually seen that
guys,
one, Ches?
Them guys.
Yeah, it's a funny movie. But what about favorite food and dessert?
I love curry. Chicken curry, goat. I love that Caribbean food. And favorite dessert is cheesecake, a nice cherry cheesecake.
Okay, now I have to ask, what kind of spice level? Because around here, curry, you can always get the different spice levels. Where are you at in that regard?
I'm boiling hot, man. I need that flame. I need the spice.
That's right. Man, yeah. We got to hang out sometime. We would get along just
I know, man.
Fine.
I know.
I want to race you. I want to see what I still got against a college football player.
Clay, I had 5 knee surgeries, man. You trying to take advantage of me?
Like I said, listen, there's a method to my madness. I want to be able to say that, well, you could probably still beat me even after your 5 knee surgeries. But if I got a chance to beat a college D1 cornerback in a race, you might be my hope. Some guy that's had 5. But like I said, you might still beat me, so I probably need to be careful. But that's good stuff. All right, what do you like to do for hobbies outside of the market and all that sort of stuff? I mean, well, I'm going to twist this. As somebody that played in college and watched college, do you watch a lot of college football and sports? Are you kind of past that? I mean, how does that? I've always wondered, like, do these guys keep up, or do they kind of just put all that behind them after they move on?
I do, but it's not the same. Like once you go on that level, how you watch football is never the same. So you're always critiquing and you're always in the mode of down and distance and you predicting the play. You ever seen Tony Romo commentate?
Oh yeah, he drives some people insane, but I think
because he nails it every time. It's absolutely impressive.
I can tell you that's probably 99.9% of former athletes.
And that is true. I suppose once you have that drilled in your mind, like you would not only at a college level, but I can only imagine that much more at a professional level, where you are literally being paid millions of dollars. So you're going to be in that film room, you're going to be studying, because your paycheck depends on it. So I mean, you would totally brainwash yourself to be able to just, there'd be it's for us like technical traders. Once you learn a chart, there is no other way that you could ever look at that chart and be like, oh, this is like the Matrix. I have no idea what I'm looking at. No, once you learn a chart, you're just always going to look at them a certain ways. They're just going to make sense. So I can see how that would unfold in your mind. But final question here, 3 words. And these 3 words would need to be what you would associate with what you'd believe, to be a successful trader, or what it takes to be a successful trader. What would those 3 words be?
Pack your patience.
Pack your patience. There we go.
I love it.
Oh man, Ches, I'm sorry, Ches. Your eardrums are
no
Ches
way.
Is on the way
I love
to the
that. Seriously.
Doctor. Yeah. That was pack your patience. Let's go. Hey, Maquan, I'm flying down there. We're going to do some tackling drills tomorrow, okay? I want to see if I can juke you.
Let's come out. Listen, come out here. Yo, if you're ever in Atlanta, I always have tickets for the Falcons, the Hawks, because of my job. So come on out here, man. I'll show you a good time.
Don't be careful what you invite, because I have been known to totally take advantage of people's, well, not take advantage because you're offering it to me, but all right, I'm not going to lose your email. Like I said, I'm not going to lose your email. Well, I think I asked you everything, but I'm so fired up right now. Are you like, first off, that's awesome. You do tutoring for kids, but do you do like motivational speaking or anything?
I do. I recently did this finance seminar where it was a group of, I think, 500 college athletes or college and seniors in high school students. And so I do. And I plan on doing more coming up in the near future.
That's awesome, man. That's good stuff. You're definitely a good speaker. You got me fired. Pack your patience. Can I use that in the future?
You can have it. That's you.
All right.
Take it.
All right. Cool. Because that's good stuff. All right, man. Well, yeah, we'll talk some more, but thank you again for hanging out, especially with your busy schedule. I want you to nail that CPA test and, just put that in another column of your success, in the success column. But thanks, man. This was a good time. And man, this was awesome. Thank you for hanging out.
All right. Thanks a lot, man. It was a pleasure. And once again, thank you for all your education.
Well, thank you for giving me a chance. Now, for you listeners out there, if you're still with us, then let's go listen to this final part, which I do every week. But this is very anticlimactic because I'm still fired up. But if you're listening on the YouTube channel, be sure to check out the channel as a whole. There's lots of other videos besides these podcasts. There's live trade videos. There's quick tip videos. So make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to this on iTunes or any of the other podcast players, subscribe. And especially on iTunes, if you could leave us a rating, leave us a comment, that would be awesome. Really helps us out, goes a long way. And then finally, if you're listening at claytrader.com on the show notes page, then click that share button and let us know your thoughts. But as always, very appreciative to you as listeners. Thank you to our esteemed co-host, Ches. Thank you to Maquan. We will see you all back next week.
This has been the Stock Trading Reality Podcast. Thanks for taking the time to hang out. To learn more about Clay and the Clay Trader community, including the trading team, premium training, and more, visit claytrader.com.